Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special Friday afternoon edition of Political Tribune TV. You're here with me. I'm Andrew, your host, and joining me is Andrea in Louisville. Today, we were thinking about some people who've been coming out against Trump lately. There was actually a relatively big news story yesterday where a former staffer revealed something pretty disturbing that we found out Trump said about the pandemic. What did we hear, Andrea?
Yeah, so yesterday, and as you mentioned, we've seen a lot of these, former staffers and former Trump confidants kind of coming to the surface, bubbling to the surface as the election gets closer, and it seems like they just can't take it anymore. They've remained silent and kind of tried to, play the devil's advocate over these years. And it's really coming to a point where a lot of these people just don't seem like they can keep quiet anymore. There comes a point where silence is complacency, right? So yesterday, we actually were hit with one hell of an ad from Olivia Troy. She was a former Pence aide, but to make matters even worse for Trump, she wasn't just a former Pence aide. She was actually a top organizer for the White House coronavirus task force that was led by Pence. We all remember kind of waiting on bated breath to figure out who this, coronavirus czar was supposed to be, and it turned out to be Pence.
Hard to believe that they turned it over to him, but go ahead.
So Troy, she was actually a top organizer on Pence's team for the task force. And through her experience of watching these people, their behavior and their rhetoric and their kind of just blatant disregard for human life in general, through these task force meetings, she actually ended up coming out with a blistering ad where she publicly endorsed Joe Biden yesterday and just absolutely trashed Donald Trump and his administration's response, to the coronavirus pandemic. So that was a lot in and of itself, but the biggest humdinger to come out of that thing was the fact that Troy revealed in this ad that evidently Trump referred to the coronavirus as a, quote, good thing because he doesn't have to shake hands with, and this is a quote, those disgusting people.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous. I'll tell you what, I found a copy of the ad. Let's roll a little bit of the relevant footage from that thing.
Yeah, let's see it.
It was shocking to see the president saying that the virus was a hoax, saying that everything's okay when we know that it's not. The truth is, he doesn't actually care about anyone else but himself. He made a statement once that was very striking. I never forgot it because it pretty much defined who he was. When we were in a task force meeting, the president said, maybe this COVID thing is a good thing. I don't like shaking hands with people. I don't have to shake hands with these disgusting people. Those disgusting people are the same people that he claims to care about. These are the people still going to his rallies today who have complete faith in who he is. If the president had taken this virus seriously, or if he had actually made an effort to tell how serious it was, he would have slowed the virus spread. He would have saved lives.
That is absolutely heartbreaking to
Isn't
find
that
out
crazy?
that's even a real thing. And really what's almost just as big is how many other people have come forward with just horrifying stuff that they've heard inside the Trump administration, coming straight from the president's mouth. The organization that she did this ad for, Republican Voters Against Trump, they've had a couple other high profile kind of ex-staffers, ex-aides, even some high ranking officials. We saw Miles Taylor, who was at the Department of Homeland Security. He was kind of a high profile departure in that Trump, mentioned him specifically on his Twitter feed, called him a disgruntled ex-employee and all this stuff. He indicated, any number of reasons why he left, but one that I remember pretty starkly was that he talked about when Trump specifically told FEMA to stop sending money to California during the wildfires. He essentially cut off funding for people whose homes had been destroyed purely because they lived in a blue state, people who weren't Trump voters. And I mean, that's horrifying. And he wasn't the last one. We had Elizabeth Newman, who was also at the Department of Homeland Security. She was actually the assistant director for threat assessments. And, we've seen reports coming out about how the white supremacist threat has been growing in America, and doing so exponentially faster since the inauguration of Trump. We thought it culminated with Charlottesville in August of 2017, but that wasn't even close.
It was just the beginning.
It was, and kind of his response to the Charlottesville debacle, disaster, tragedy, the whole infamous good people on both sides thing, really, in the ad that Elizabeth Newman cut for RVAT, she said, rhetoric like that leads directly to the empowerment and emboldening of the white supremacist underbelly, kind of these groups that have been gaining in popularity and strength over the last 3.5, nearly 4 years now.
Yes, absolutely. And then people wonder why we've snowballed down this road the past 4 years. And now we start to wonder why we have Derek Chauvins and we have Kyle Rittenhouses. And, when the very top of the top in the country, gets in front of that podium and says something like, there's very fine people on both sides, that gives the Kyle Rittenhouses and the Derek Chauvins that validation that they felt they needed to put their knee on a black man's neck or shoot a peaceful protester. And you had mentioned Trump had specifically labeled Miles Taylor as a disgruntled employee, and I've got to tell you, same thing happened to Troy. It was within moments, of her ad being released, that the White House, I think it was Jed Deere, released a statement saying, don't worry about her, she's crazy, she's nothing but a disgruntled employee. And they released this letter, actually, it was Troy's departure letter, where they tried to claim that this was proof that, Troy admired the Trump White House and had given them her good graces upon her departure. And while Troy's letter did say something about, the fact that she was honored to have worked in the White House, not a single word in that departure letter says anything about having any admiration or respect for the president or the vice president.
I mean, because how could you? And the thing is, her experience, aside from not just being unique to her, other people have had this kind of thing, is the kind of the setting that she heard this in. It's not like Trump was privately saying disgusting people, on a phone call or to his best friend or to a staffer in a back room somewhere. He said this during a coronavirus task force meeting. Meaning
this wasn't a private conversation.
I mean, that is just without shame. That he clearly not only believes it, but believes that kind of attitude is so common that he could just say that openly in front of a whole bunch of other people. That's almost the hardest thing for me to swallow about Donald Trump. It's not just that, he comes across as such a sociopath. It's that he thinks it's so natural. He really does believe that other people are just like him. I don't think his world is any bigger than his own head.
He has no shame. And, I noticed something, when Olivia Troy's ad first came out yesterday, everybody was so kind of taken aback by, Trump's comments about shaking hands with disgusting people and, but if you think back to when this pandemic first started, you'll recall Trump and Pence both making a massive stink out of not being able to shake people's hands.
Right,
You know,
because that's supposed to make them human.
yes, exactly. That was Pence's, especially Pence. That was his biggest thing. I can't stop shaking hands with people. It's a sign of humanity. It's what we do as politicians. Blah 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 blah. And we've heard over the years, whether it's been from Noel Castler or Mary Trump or whoever, Trump is supposed to be a germaphobe.
Right.
So it doesn't really come as a huge surprise to me that he, is unwilling. I shouldn't say unwilling, but was not upset about the fact that shaking hands, was frowned upon at this point. But this is further proof that when the virus first came out and the CDC and WHO, they were these professional entities were warning people, don't shake hands, don't touch people, don't get in their faces, don't, all these lists of requirements to help stop the spread of this literally deadly, illness. Trump all of a sudden has a problem with not being able to touch people. And it just goes to prove that he is the most contrary, stubborn, hard-headed, downright defiant human being to have ever walked the face of this earth.
That's
So
exactly.
he's willing to take this germophobia or whatever you want to call it that he's had all of his life and put that on the back burner if it means that he can get kind of a screw you into, the CDC or WHO or whoever it is that he feels like is telling him what to do. Because if we've learned anything about Trump over these past 4 years, it's from the moment that he was inaugurated and moved those golf clubs into the White House, he thought he was in charge of everything.
Oh yeah, the infamous Article 2 authority he believes that
Yes.
the Constitution endows him with. The thing is, I think that germophobia and kind of that entire what we knew of Trump before his presidency, that was all stuff that he was free to be infamous for before he had to project himself as the most powerful man in the universe. Anything at all that makes Trump look weak or hesitant or in any way not fully in control of a situation
Yes.
is something that he's willing to do whatever it takes to look like the opposite of that. He needs to absolutely assert himself. You see it in something as small as what other world leaders have noticed is his handshake. He reaches out his hand and grabs you by the back of the elbow and jerks your arm toward him and shakes your hand, up close to his chest, as a pure control thing. And really, the kind of the only conclusion that you can draw from all this, from the fact that he says heinous things in front of people, thinking that they're perfectly normal, from the handshake, from the reversal on his germophobia, is that honestly, he doesn't just not care about people. I think he actively dislikes them. I think that
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
It goes far and beyond, just a dislike for basic humans. It steps into, active behavior to do everything within his power to make our lives harder, to get one over on us, and it all hails back to that power that that he thinks that he has, and that is crazy to me. Having people that you have kind of some nihilism and people that just kind of don't care, but this is above and beyond even that. You've gone from somebody who just doesn't give a crap to somebody who has actively made it his mission to ruin as much as he humanly can while he can.
just as a pure act of trolling. You're absolutely right. Well, I think that's about all we have time for this afternoon. Thanks for joining me today, Andrea, and thanks for watching, everybody who's tuned in to Political Tribune TV. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you in the next special episode. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.